I hid my $40 million inheritance from my dad's new wife. Then she showed up with a lawyer. The day my dad's new wife showed up at my front door with a lawyer, I realized she had never married him for love, she had married him for a fortune she believed was hers. The problem was, she had no idea the fortune she was chasing already belonged to me. My name is Ethan Carter, and 2 years earlier my grandfather had secretly left me a $40 million inheritance. He made me promise never to tell anyone until the time was right. Money doesn't change people, Grandpa told me during our last conversation. It only reveals who they've always been. I kept that promise, even from my own father. After serving 8 years in the army, keeping secrets had become second nature. I returned home expecting to rebuild my relationship with Dad after years apart, but instead I found a stranger living in my childhood home. Vanessa, his new wife, welcomed me with a perfect smile, yet every conversation somehow drifted toward Grandpa's money, his business, or his estate. I answered every question with the same calm reply. Grandpa didn't leave me much. She smiled politely, but disappointment flashed across her eyes for just a second. That tiny moment told me she was searching for something far bigger than family. Over the following months, Dad changed in ways I never expected. Mom's old photographs quietly disappeared from the walls. Grandpa's antique furniture was sold. Vanessa filled the house with expensive decorations while convincing Dad they deserved a fresh start. Every family dinner became uncomfortable. My cousins suddenly started asking strange questions about my finances, my job, and whether Grandpa had ever trusted me with business documents. It felt like someone was planting ideas in their minds. One evening, I stopped by unexpectedly and overheard Vanessa speaking on the phone. If the old man had anything, she whispered, the son knows where it is. My heart pounded. She wasn't guessing anymore, she was hunting. I walked away before she noticed me and immediately called Grandpa's longtime attorney. His answer chilled me. Your grandfather prepared for this possibility, he said. He suspected someone would eventually come looking for the inheritance. That was the first time I realized Grandpa hadn't just protected his fortune, he had been protecting me. A week later, everything exploded. My phone rang early on a Monday morning. Grandpa's attorney sounded unusually serious. Ethan, come to my office immediately. When I arrived, he placed a sealed folder on the desk containing handwritten notes from Grandpa. They mentioned Vanessa by name, written years before she had even met my father. My hand started shaking as I turned each page. Grandpa believed she had a history of getting close to wealthy older men and gathering information about their assets. Before I could finish reading, the receptionist rushed into the office. Mr. Carter, she said nervously, there's a woman demanding to see you. The attorney looked toward the hallway, then slowly stood up. She's not alone. Seconds later, the office door swung open. Vanessa walked in wearing a confident smile, and beside her stood an expensive lawyer carrying a thick file. He placed it on the conference table, looked directly at me, and said, Mrs. Carter believes you're hiding property that legally belongs to her. We're here to collect it. The room went silent. I looked from the lawyer to Vanessa, then back to the thick file lying on the table. You think I owe you something? I asked. The attorney adjusted his glasses and slid a document toward me. Mrs. Carter believes your grandfather's estate was not fully disclosed during probate. If assets were concealed, she may have legal rights through her marriage to your father. I couldn't help but smile. They had built an entire case on assumptions instead of facts. Grandpa's estate had been planned years before Dad ever met Vanessa, and every trust had been legally protected. Still, I kept my expression calm. Revealing too much now would only help them. Vanessa leaned forward confidently. Ethan, this doesn't have to get ugly. Families should share. Her voice sounded warm, but her eyes were cold. Tell us where the money is, and we can settle this quietly. I folded my hands. There isn't anything to settle. The attorney tried another approach. If you're hiding financial records, a judge can compel disclosure. Before I could answer, Grandpa's attorney, Margaret Lawson, calmly opened another folder. Actually, she said, every asset was transferred into an irrevocable trust before Mr. Walter Carter's death. Mrs. Carter has no legal interest whatsoever. Vanessa's confident smile vanished for the first time. That's impossible, she snapped. Margaret slid certified documents across the table. It's not impossible. It's documented. Vanessa glanced at the papers but refused to read them. Instead, she turned toward me. You manipulated an old man. The accusation hung in the air until Margaret spoke again. Be careful with your words. We have recorded interviews, medical evaluations, and witnesses proving Mr. Carter made every decision voluntarily. The lawyer's expression changed. He quietly realized this wasn't the easy payday he had expected. Vanessa suddenly stood up, grabbed her purse, and pointed a finger at me. This isn't over, Ethan. Secrets always come out. She stormed toward the door, but before leaving, she whispered just loudly enough for me to hear, your father won't stand beside you forever. After they left, Margaret remained unusually serious. She reached into her desk and handed me a sealed envelope marked in Grandpa's handwriting. Open this only if someone comes after you personally, she said. My stomach tightened as I broke the seal. Inside was a single handwritten sentence. If Vanessa has found you, then the person helping her is someone you already trust. I froze. At that exact moment, my phone buzzed. The caller ID showed my father's name. But when I answered, it wasn't my dad speaking. A deep unfamiliar voice said, Mr. Carter, don't go home. Someone is already inside your house. My pulse spiked. Who is this? I demanded, already rushing toward my truck. The caller ignored my question. Listen carefully. If you value your grandfather's records, don't drive straight home. They expect you to. The line went dead. I immediately called the local police and then headed toward my neighborhood by a different route. As I turned onto my street, flashing lights reflected off the houses. 2 patrol cars were parked outside my home. An officer stopped me before I reached the front door. Mr. Carter? I nodded. We found signs of forced entry, but whoever came and left before we arrived. My stomach sank as I stepped inside. Drawers had been pulled out, file cabinets emptied onto the floor, and every room had been searched with military precision. They hadn't taken my television, cash, or electronics. They were looking for documents. Only one thing was missing, my grandfather's old leather journal, the one I had always believed contained nothing more than personal memories. While detectives photographed the scene, an older officer quietly walked over. "Whoever did this knew exactly what they wanted," he said. I stared at the empty shelf where the journal had been. Then they're about to be disappointed. The truth was, Grandpa had once admitted that the journal was a decoy. The real records were stored somewhere else, but he had never told me where. As I tried to piece everything together, my phone buzzed again. This time it was my father. His voice sounded shaken. "Ethan." "Vanessa packed her bags this morning. She said she had business with an attorney, and now she won't answer my calls. The police just came by asking questions about a break-in." I took a deep breath. "Dad, did you ever give her a key to my house?" Silence. Then I heard him whisper, "She said it was for emergencies." My eyes closed. The emergency had been me all along. Before I could respond, another call came through, from Margaret Lawson. "Ethan, where are you?" she asked urgently. "At my house." "Leave immediately," she said. "We've discovered something you need to see." 20 minutes later, I arrived at her office. She placed a freshly delivered package on the conference table. There was no return address. Inside was Grandpa's missing leather journal. My heart raced as I opened it. Every page had been ripped out except one. Across the final page, someone had written a message in black ink: "You protected the money, but can you protect your father?" Tucked beneath the page was a recent photograph of my dad walking alone into a parking garage. On the back, a single sentence was printed in neat block letters: "You're too late." The photograph slipped from my hand onto Margaret's desk. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I grabbed my phone and called my father. Straight to voicemail. I called again. Nothing. A third time. Still nothing. Margaret was already dialing another number. "I'm contacting the FBI agent your grandfather worked with years ago," she said. "If this is connected to the investigation he documented, local police may not have the full picture." My chest tightened. This had stopped being a fight over money. Someone was using my father as leverage. Just then, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It contained only an address and one sentence: "Come alone if you want to see your father again." I knew it could be a trap, but if there was even the slightest chance Dad was in danger, I couldn't ignore it. The address led to an abandoned warehouse near the old industrial district where Grandpa's company had once operated. I parked several blocks away and approached on foot, using habits I hadn't needed since my army days. The building looked deserted, but fresh tire tracks cut through the dust outside. As I slipped inside, I heard voices echoing from the far end of the warehouse. One of them belonged to Vanessa. "He'll come," she said confidently. "He's predictable. He always tries to save everyone." I edged closer until I could see through a broken section of the wall. My father sat tied to a chair, frightened but unharmed. Standing beside him was Vanessa, and the same lawyer who had confronted me. But they weren't in charge. A tall gray-haired man in an expensive suit calmly stepped forward and handed Vanessa a folder. "Once Ethan signs the transfer documents," he said, "you'll receive exactly what we promised." My father looked up in confusion. "Transfer? What transfer? Ethan doesn't owe you anything." Vanessa refused to meet his eyes. I reached for my phone to alert the authorities, but before I could press send, someone stepped silently behind me. "Don't move," a calm voice whispered. I slowly turned and found myself staring at a man wearing an FBI badge beneath his jacket. He raised a finger to his lips. "Easy," he murmured. "We've been tracking this group for years." My heartbeat slowed just enough for him to continue. "Your grandfather wasn't just protecting an inheritance. He was helping us build a case against a sophisticated fraud ring targeting wealthy families." I stared at him in disbelief. Before I could ask another question, the warehouse lights suddenly went out. In the darkness, I heard my father shout my name, followed by a single gunshot that echoed through the building. The gunshot echoed through the warehouse, followed by complete silence. Every instinct from my army years took over. I dropped behind a stack of shipping crates as the FBI agent beside me spoke quietly into his radio. "Shots fired. Move in now." Red laser sights suddenly swept across the darkness. Then came the sound of boots pounding across the concrete floor. "FBI. Nobody move." Flashlights exploded through the room. People shouted from every direction. I saw my father fall sideways with the chair still tied to him, but he was moving. Relief flooded through me. The shot hadn't hit him. One of the kidnappers had fired wildly while trying to escape. Vanessa screamed as armed agents surrounded the building. The expensive lawyer dropped his briefcase and raised both hands. But the gray-haired man who had been giving orders disappeared into the shadows before anyone could stop him. I sprinted toward my father, cutting the ropes from his wrists. His hands were shaking. "Ethan," he whispered, gripping my arm. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." Before I could answer, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a small flash drive. "Vanessa hid this in my car yesterday. She thought I never saw her." An FBI technician immediately connected it to a secure laptop. Everyone in the room watched the screen. Video after video appeared. Secret recordings. Financial records. Fake identities. Bank transfers. There were even conversations between Vanessa and the gray-haired man discussing my grandfather months before she had ever met my father. Then the final recording began to play. Grandpa's face appeared on the screen, sitting calmly in his office years earlier. "If you're watching this," he said, "then my greatest fear came true. Someone came after my family instead of my fortune." The room fell completely silent. Grandpa looked directly into the camera as though he knew I would one day be standing there. "Ethan, trust the people who earn it, not the people who demand it. And if your father is beside you, forgive him. He was chosen because he loved too easily." My father broke down, covering his face with his hands. "I'm so sorry, son. I failed you, and I failed your mother." I pulled him into a hug for the first time in years. Across the room, agents handcuffed Vanessa as she stared at me with a look of pure hatred. But before she was escorted away, she smiled. It wasn't the smile of someone who had lost. It was the smile of someone protecting a bigger secret. She looked directly at me and quietly said, "You think the 40 million was the real prize? Ethan, your grandfather left something far more valuable. And the man who escaped tonight already has it." My heart sank as every FBI agent in the room suddenly turned toward the warehouse exit.